My name is Rebecca, I'm 38 years old, and my husband's 26-year-old mistress sent me 60 explicit photos of them together, in my own bed, with the message, I'm his next wife. Before I tell you how I made sure those photos made her famous in a way she never, ever expected, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. It's always amazing to see how far these stories can reach. Okay. So. The phone. It lit up on the kitchen counter where I'd left it, a single point of light in the darkened room. It was late, almost midnight, and David was supposedly at a work dinner, a phrase that had become increasingly common over the past year. A text message notification flashed. Then another. And another. A relentless stream of them, buzzing with an ugly insistence. I walked over, a sigh of annoyance on my lips, expecting a workgroup chat gone wild or a late-night meme dump from my sister. What I saw instead, it didn't just knock the air out of my lungs. It felt like the floor dropped out from under the entire world. Photo after photo. 60 of them. An avalanche of betrayal delivered through a 5-inch screen. Sophia, his personal trainer from the gym, a girl with bright, empty eyes, barely older than my niece. And David, my husband of 15 years. My David. They were in our bedroom. On the new, 800 thread count Egyptian cotton sheets I'd splurged on last month because I wanted us to feel a little bit of luxury. Some photos were selfies, Sophia smiling triumphantly into the camera, a smug, victorious curl to her lip, with David asleep or passed out behind her. Others were, more explicit. Posed. Deliberate. Each one was a separate, meticulously crafted stab to the heart. And they were all time-stamped. 11:42 p.m. on a Tuesday, the night he was closing a deal. 1:17 a.m. on a Friday, the night of his company retreat. Then came the final message, the one that tied it all together in a neat, cruel bow. A simple line of text beneath the final, most damning photo. I'm his next wife. You are nothing to him anymore. For a full minute, I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My hands started to shake, a tremor that began in my fingertips and traveled up my arm. The phone slipped from my grasp and clattered onto the cold tile floor. I braced myself against the granite of the countertop, my knuckles turning white, the only sound in the universe the frantic, panic thumping of my own heart. The world just went silent. There wasn't a scream in me. There were no tears. Just a hollow, ringing void where my life, my trust, my future, used to be. It felt like a punch to the gut, but the fist was still there, clenched and twisting, right under my ribs. After what felt like an eternity, I bent down, my movements stiff and robotic, and picked up the phone. The screen was cracked, a spiderweb of fractures across the glass, but the images were still there. Gleaming. Taunting me. And that's when something inside me shifted. The shock didn't disappear, but it froze. It crystallized into something else. Something cold, and hard, and terrifyingly clear. I looked at the photos again, but this time, through the haze of pain, I wasn't just seeing a betrayal. I was seeing data. Timestamps. GPS locations embedded in the metadata. I was seeing evidence. I walked over to my laptop, my feet silent on the hardwood floor. I opened a new folder on my secure, encrypted drive. I didn't name it Cheating Husband or The End of Everything. I named it Project Restructure. And one by one, with methodical precision, I downloaded every single photo, every message, every scrap of data. I didn't know it then, sitting there in the sterile blue light of the screen, but this wasn't just about an affair. This was the start of a war. And I had just been handed the battle plans. You know, for 15 years, I thought we had it all. Not a fairy tale, movie-perfect life, but a real one. A good one. There's a photo on our mantelpiece from our wedding day. David, so impossibly handsome in his tux, looking at me like I was the only person in the world, like I was a miracle. I was a 23-year-old marketing assistant with big dreams, he was a junior financial advisor with a hunger to succeed. We built everything from the ground up, together. I remember our first tiny apartment, celebrating with cheap pizza on the floor because we hadn't bought a table yet. We celebrated every small win, his first big client, my first real promotion. We planned for the future, sketching it out over glasses of wine. We had a chart for the college fund for the 2 kids we swore we'd have. We even joked about what inheritance we might leave them someday. Our combined salary wasn't huge at first, but it was ours. We were a team. He was my rock. I remember when my father passed away. It was sudden, a heart attack. The grief was a physical weight, and I thought it was going to crush me. After the funeral, I couldn't stop crying for days. David just held me. He didn't offer platitudes or try to cheer me up. He just sat with me in the dark, held my hand, and absorbed my pain. He was my partner, the other half of my soul. But the man who had been coming home for the past 6 months, he was a stranger wearing my husband's face. He was distant, his eyes always tired, his attention permanently glued to his phone. When I'd try to talk to him, to connect, it was like talking to a ghost. The excuses were a constant rotation. Stress at work. Big project. Gotta close this deal. A few months ago, at a dinner party with friends, I made a joke about his obsession with the gym, and he shot me a look so cold, so full of contempt, that it silenced the whole table. Later, he accused me of trying to embarrass him. The signs were there, like little red flags planted along the road to disaster. The faint, sweet smell of a perfume that wasn't mine clinging to his shirts. The credit card statements with charges from restaurants I'd never been to. When I'd ask, he'd become a master of deflection. That was a client dinner, Beck. You know how it is. He made me feel like I was crazy. Paranoid. Insecure. You start to doubt your own sanity. You believe the lies because the truth is simply too catastrophic to consider. You don't build a life with someone for 15 years to throw it away on a suspicion. You trust them. You give them the benefit of the doubt. You believe in the foundation you built together, even as it's cracking under your feet. But my life wasn't just David. I had a career. A damn good one. For the last 12 years, I'd been climbing the ladder in digital marketing. I wasn't just an assistant anymore, I was a director at a top agency in the city, managing a team of 15 and a multi-million-dollar budget. My job is to understand why people do what they do online. I build complex campaigns, I analyze user behavior data, I find patterns in the chaos, I track digital footprints across the web. I remember a particularly difficult project last year, a client on the verge of pulling their contract. I spent a week buried in data, and found a tiny, overlooked user segment they had been ignoring. I rebuilt their entire strategy around it. We didn't just save the contract, we doubled their ROI in 6 months. That success got me my directorship. I am good at my job. I am good at finding the truth hidden in the data. I remember telling my team during that project's kickoff, everyone leaves a digital footprint. Whether they want to or not, they leave a trail. Our job is to follow it. I had no idea how soon I'd be using those exact skills to follow a trail of lies that led right back to my own bedroom. The first thing I did wasn't to throw a lamp at David's head, though God knows I wanted to. The first thing I did was what I do best, research. While he slept, oblivious, in the guest room, I couldn't even stand to look at our bed, I was at my laptop. I wasn't a crying, hysterical wife. I was an analyst compiling a report. I started with Sophia. It was almost too easy. Her public social media was a monument to narcissism. A 26-year-old fitness instructor whose life looked like a curated ad for a life she couldn't possibly afford. Photos at 5-star hotels, weekends in Miami, designer bags that I knew a personal trainer's salary couldn't cover. I started a simple reverse image search on some of her profile pictures. I went down a digital rabbit hole, clicking through forums, obscure blogs, and cached websites. I found her. Over and over. Sometimes she was Chloe, a yoga enthusiast. Sometimes she was Amber, a nutrition coach. But it was always her, always with a different man. They were always older, always well-dressed, always had the glazed look of men who couldn't believe their luck. I started to see the pattern. This wasn't a girl who fell in love with my husband. This was a girl with a business model, and my husband was her latest product. My next step was to find a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. I spent hours researching, looking for the sharpest, most ruthless divorce attorney in the city. I found her. Catherine Alastair. Her reputation was legendary. I booked a consultation under a fake name. I walked into her sleek, downtown office feeling like an imposter in my own life. I was wearing my best power suit, my project restructure folder on an encrypted USB drive in my purse. Catherine was a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 50s with eyes that seemed to see right through you. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I simply plugged the drive into her conference room monitor and said, "Here is the situation." I walked her through the 60 photos. Then I showed her the spreadsheet I'd started on Sophia's online activity, the other men, the expensive lifestyle, the network of connections I was beginning to map out. Catherine watched, her expression unreadable. She scrolled through the images, her face impassive. When I was done, she leaned back in her expensive leather chair. She didn't offer pity. She offered something infinitely better. Respect. "Rebecca," she said, her voice firm and clear. "In 25 years of family law, I have seen some truly ugly situations. But I have never seen evidence so meticulously documented by a client before the first consultation. This isn't just a case. This is an airtight vault. We will not just win. We will annihilate them." I felt a flicker of something, the first positive feeling in days. It was the feeling of being seen, of being validated. "His family has significant assets," I said, my voice steady. "A potential inheritance he's always counted on." Catherine smiled, a thin, dangerous smile. "By the time we're done, he'll be lucky if he inherits their debt." That night, I took the next step. I bought the domain name citysecrets.com. I spent the entire night building a simple, anonymous blog. It was clean, professional, and optimized for search engines with every keyword I could think of: cheating, affair, mistress, betrayal, divorce. I wrote the first post. I changed our names, calling myself Eleanor, David Mark, and Sophia Chloe. But I kept every other detail exactly as it happened. The sheets. The timestamps. The taunting message. I poured all the cold, hard, factual pain into that post, crafting it not as a diary entry, but as a case study. At 4 a.m., with the sky just starting to turn a bruised purple, I stared at the publish button. This was the point of no return. My finger trembled as it hovered over the mouse. Then I took a deep breath, and I clicked. I watched the little confirmation message pop up: "Your post is now live." A wave of pure terror and adrenaline washed over me. I got up and walked to the window, watching the city wake up, my own little digital bomb now floating out there in the ether. I went back to the computer and saw the first view. Then 10. Then 100. It was a digital heartbeat, and it was getting faster. The blog exploded. I had expected a few hundred views, maybe a handful of sympathetic comments from strangers. What I got was a tidal wave. Within 48 hours, it had 50,000 views. By the end of the week, it was over 200,000. But it wasn't the numbers that shocked me. It was the comments. Hundreds and hundreds of them. Women from all over the country, from all walks of life, sharing their own stories. This happened to my sister. They drained her husband's accounts. My ex-husband did the same thing, met her at the same gym. The girl even used the same lines on me, word for word. It was a chorus of shared pain, of shared betrayal, and my little blog had become its sanctuary. But the marketing analyst in me couldn't just sit back and watch. This was a focus group, and I was going to analyze the data. I started to categorize the comments in a spreadsheet, just like I would for a campaign analysis. I wasn't just looking for sympathy, I was looking for patterns. I tagged them by location, by the details they shared, the name of the gym, the brand of champagne they were always drinking in their pictures, the pet names they used. And I started seeing connections. The same gym chain, Ascend Fitness, was mentioned 5 times in 3 different states. A specific high-end restaurant in another city was mentioned twice. Certain phrases, certain manipulative tactics, kept repeating like a script. This wasn't just a collection of sad stories. This was a franchise. I decided to be proactive. I created a secure, anonymous email address and replied to 3 women whose stories were the most detailed and credible. I wrote, "I'm the author of City Secrets. I believe our stories are connected. I am building a case. Would you be willing to speak anonymously?" 2 of them never replied. I understood. They were scared. But the 3rd one did. Her name was Emily. Her email simply said, "I know who you're talking about. I used to work at Ascend Fitness. It's worse than you think. I have proof." My blood ran cold. I arranged a call with her, using an encrypted app. Her voice was shaky at first, a nervous whisper. She was terrified of retaliation from Sophia. "She's not just a mean girl, she's dangerous," Emily whispered. I spent 20 minutes not asking for information, but explaining my methodology, how I was protecting sources, how I was building a wall of data. I had to earn her trust. Finally, she took a deep breath. "Sophia wasn't just a trainer," Emily said, her voice growing stronger. "She was the ringleader of a group they called the Platinum Circle. They would target wealthy, married men at the gym. They had a system, a playbook. They shared information on their targets. When I quit, I was so disgusted. I took something with me. I copied a folder from her laptop. I didn't know what to do with it, but I couldn't just leave it there. 2 days later, an encrypted file transfer notification popped up on my screen. I downloaded the contents. It wasn't a folder. It was an arsenal. A black notebook, scanned page by page, and a USB drive's worth of files. What I saw on that drive, it changed everything. It was a series of spreadsheets, chillingly professional, just like the ones I would make for a marketing campaign. But the targets weren't customers. They were men. Names, ages, estimated net worth, profession, kids, weaknesses. David's name was on it. His weakness was listed as needs constant validation, susceptible to flattery, resents wife's career success. There were folders of WhatsApp conversations between Sophia and at least a dozen other women, sharing tips, celebrating wins, and coordinating their stories. "Mark is taking me to Aruba," one message read. "Just told him the story about my sick mother. He's setting up the emergency fund tomorrow." And then there was the PDF. The one that made me feel physically sick to my stomach. It was a 20-page document, complete with corporate-style graphics, titled, "The Trophy Wife Playbook, a 10-step guide to securing your financial future." It was a step-by-step manual on everything from how to create a chance encounter at the gym, to how to manipulate a man into setting up a separate bank account for you, all the way to how to provoke the wife into a messy, emotional divorce that would make the husband feel justified in leaving her. Step 8 was titled The Photo Blitz, inflict maximum emotional damage to ensure she reacts, not thinks. A panicked woman makes poor legal decisions. I was reading my own life story, my deepest pain, written out as a corporate strategy. This was no longer about a cheating husband. This was about organized, predatory fraud. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my laptop, the contents of that USB drive spread across my screen, and I wrote. I rebranded the blog. It was no longer just City Secrets. I launched a new series, right on the homepage, with a stark, bold banner that read, "The Predator Network, How a Ring of Influencers is Exploiting Marriages for Profit." I laid it all out. The playbook, with key sections highlighted. The spreadsheets, with names and financial data redacted to protect privacy but showing the scale. The WhatsApp messages, time-stamped and damning. I presented it not as a scorned wife's diary, but as an investigative report, complete with evidence, analysis, and sourcing. I published the first article in the series at dawn. The reaction was instantaneous and explosive. My original post had gone viral. This went nuclear. Within a day, it was picked up by a major online news outlet. Then another. By the weekend, my anonymous story was the subject of a segment on a national morning news show. I was sitting in my kitchen, drinking coffee, watching a panel of legal and psychological experts discuss the Predator Network and the documents I had leaked. David saw it, too. He walked into the kitchen, his face ashen, holding his phone, the article displayed on the screen. "Rebecca, is this?" He couldn't even finish the sentence. I just looked at him, my face a mask of stone. I didn't have to say a word. Then, the phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. A serious, professional voice on the other end. "Is this the publisher of the City Secrets blog?" It was a journalist, a well-known investigative reporter from a national newspaper. And an hour after that, another call came. This one was different. The voice was calm, authoritative, and it made the hairs on my arms stand up. "Ma'am, my name is Special Agent Phillips with the FBI. We have been investigating a multi-state financial fraud ring for the past 18 months. They've been very good at hiding their money. Your blog, and the documents you've published, just provided us with the last piece of the puzzle we needed to connect their activities to specific individuals. We need to talk." That was the real twist. My quest for personal justice had accidentally intersected with a federal investigation into financial crimes and money laundering. These women weren't just breaking hearts, they were breaking federal laws, moving money in ways that had gotten them on the government's radar. My evidence, the photos, the playbook, Emily's testimony, gave the FBI the probable cause they needed to get warrants for financial records and arrests. A week later, I was watching the evening news. And there she was. Sophia. No longer smiling smugly in my bed. This was a mugshot. Her face, pale and shocked, stripped of all its makeup and arrogance. The headline scrolled across the bottom of the screen, 12 arrested in $1.80 million romance fraud ring. They showed her being led away in handcuffs from her luxury apartment building. I had promised to make her famous. And I had kept my promise. The house was quiet. The media storm had started to calm down, at least for me. The FBI had what they needed, the story was now in their hands. All that was left was the silent, gaping wreckage of my own life. David finally came to talk to me. He didn't come with anger, or excuses, but with a profound, soul-crushing shame that seemed to make him smaller. He sat across from me on the living room sofa, a piece of furniture we'd picked out together, now a chasm between us. "I saw the news," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "They said I was a mark. They had a file on me. On my finances, my parents' inheritance, everything." He looked up, his eyes, once so full of life, were now hollow and pleading. "Beck, I was a victim too. Don't you see? She played me, all of it was a lie. I was stupid, so stupid. I let him talk. I let him pour out all the justifications, all the self-pity, the whole narrative where he was the real victim. The old me, the wife of 15 years, would have argued, or cried, or maybe even felt a sliver of pity for this broken man. But I wasn't that person anymore. That person had died on the kitchen floor a few weeks ago. When he was finished, his voice trailing off into a pathetic silence, I didn't say anything. I just stood up, walked over to my briefcase, and pulled out 2 sets of documents. I laid them on the coffee table between us. On the left was a copy of the divorce papers my lawyer had drawn up, signed and dated by me. On the right was a stack of our financial statements from the last year, with every suspicious withdrawal, every lavish gift to Sophia, every transfer to accounts I didn't recognize, highlighted in bright, unforgiving yellow. "This," I said, pointing to the financial statements, "is your weakness, David. Your need for an ego boost, your carelessness with our money, our future, the college fund we planned. That's the door you opened. They didn't have to kick it down, you held it wide open for them and offered them a drink." I pushed the divorce papers towards him. "I don't hate you, David. To hate you, I'd have to feel something. And I don't. I feel nothing but the need to move on." He stared at the papers, then back at me, his last bit of hope crumbling. "What do you want me to do?" "My signature is already on them," I said, my voice as calm and steady as a frozen lake. "This is my way out. As for your path to redemption, you'll have to find that on your own." It was the last real conversation we ever had. There was no screaming match, no final, dramatic fight. Just the quiet, clean amputation of a life that was no longer mine. A year can change everything. The woman who sat in her kitchen, shattered by 60 photographs, doesn't exist anymore. The divorce was finalized quickly and quietly. David agreed to everything without a fight. He even cooperated fully with the FBI investigation as a witness. I sold the house. I couldn't stand the ghosts. I used the money to start over, in a bright, sunny apartment downtown that was all mine, filled with my books, my music, and my peace. My blog, City Secrets, became something more. After the story broke, I was flooded with offers. Book deals, interviews, movie rights. I took one. I wrote a book called From Victim to Victor. It became an unexpected bestseller. But the most important thing I did was use the platform I'd accidentally built. I founded the Victor Network, a non-profit organization dedicated to helping women who have been betrayed and defrauded. We provide legal aid, psychological support, and career reintegration programs. We have over 20,000 members nationwide. Sometimes, I work late, on a call with a woman on the other side of the country, her voice choked with tears, telling me her husband just left, that she found things on his phone. I listen, and I tell her, I know. I know it hurts. Now let's talk about a plan. I get to be the person I needed when my own world fell apart. I still have my analytics dashboard on my laptop. It's not so different from the ones I used in my old marketing job. But the metrics aren't clicks or conversion rates or ROI. They're a number of women who found new jobs, successful legal cases, members who report feeling hopeful about their future. I took the tools of my old life, the skills that I had honed for years, and used them to build a new one. I used my experience, my pain, and I weaponized it for good. So I want to leave you with this. To any woman out there who has been made to feel small, or old, or invisible. To anyone who has been told they are nothing. Our age is not our weakness, it's our strength. Our experience is not a burden, it's our secret weapon. And the moment we refuse to accept the shame that others try to place on us, the moment we decide to write our own story, that is the moment our real revolution begins. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. It means the world to share it with you. I have a question for you all. What's one piece of advice you would give to someone facing a deep betrayal? Let me know in the comments below. Your wisdom could help someone else watching this right now. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. It really helps the channel. I'll see you in the next one.